Welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right into a super fascinating analysis today, looking really closely at the actual architecture of modern relationships. We're going to break down some deeply ingrained societal norms, strip away the old assumptions, and just look at the raw data and logic behind how we choose to partner up today. I mean, if you've been paying any attention to demographic shifts lately, you already know the traditional relationship escalator is being fundamentally reevaluated. So grab your focus and let's just get right into it. Okay, let's dive into the deep end. Here is the big, central question that is completely redefining modern romance right now. If you are a dink, that is double income, no kids, is there actually any point to getting married? Like, really? The immediate assumption for a lot of folks is that without the intention of raising a family, the whole institution of marriage kind of just becomes obsolete. But the answer provided by the source material is super clear on this. They say, not necessarily. It's an incredibly common dilemma faced by dink couples today. And to understand why the answer isn't just a simple yes or no, we really have to look at how we've historically defined marriage and begin to sort of untangle it. And this brings us to a brilliant conceptual shift. We absolutely need to unbundle the tradition. For generations, society has taken two completely distinct questions: do you want to get married and do you want to have children, and tied them super tightly together into this single, non-negotiable package deal. But here is the reality check. Getting married does not equal having children. They are fundamentally two entirely different sets of questions. Once you conceptually separate the act of marriage from the act of having kids, it's like a light bulb goes off. You suddenly open up a completely different way of evaluating what a relationship is actually for. So take parenting off the table entirely. What are you left with? You're left with the institutional menu of what marriage still inherently offers. And it turns out many dink couples still actively choose marriage because it provides this amazing ready-made framework. It offers a structured legal relationship. It provides instant social identity recognition, meaning, your family, your friends, your workplace, they immediately understand the weight and permanence of your relationship. It offers the ritual and the stability of a long-term commitment. And, maybe most importantly, it provides a default protection of common life rules. You literally don't have to reinvent the wheel. The institution already has the rules built right in to protect your shared life. Let's zoom in on that first perk for a second, because it is arguably the biggest game changer. A legal relationship isn't just a fancy piece of paper. It's a highly functional binding framework. We are talking about the automated default rules covering joint property ownership. We're talking about inheritance rights if, heaven forbid, the worst were to happen. We're talking about the unquestioned authority to provide medical signatures during an emergency. And of course, there are massive implications for insurance and taxes. The crucial point here is that marriage basically acts as a powerful, pre-written contract for life's most essential and vulnerable decisions. It saves you from having to legally draft your own DIY 50-page relationship terms and conditions. But there is an entirely valid flip side to this institutional menu. I mean, why do so many dinks view marriage as totally unnecessary? Well, first off, without the goal of raising kids, the sheer institutional necessity of marriage just drops off a cliff. For a lot of people, cohabitation or a long-term partnership is more than sufficient to fulfill all their emotional and practical needs. Plus, all those heavy legal frameworks we literally just talked about, some people view those as massive legal and economic binding risks. If you are someone who values your autonomy above everything else, the desire to retain your maximum independence makes the heavy legal machinery of marriage look way less like a benefit and a lot more like a potential liability. Which brings us to this fascinating psychological divide: how we actually view exit costs. See, marriage intentionally raises the cost of leaving a relationship. You can't just pack your bags and walk out the door. There are legal, financial, and social processes you have to untangle. Now, on one side, some view this high exit cost as an anchor. It provides stability. It forces couples to work through the minor, everyday issues rather than just abandoning ship when things get tough. But on the exact opposite side, people view this very same feature as a cage, a literal trap that keeps people stuck in unhappy situations purely because leaving is just too difficult. So ask yourself right now, do you see high exit costs as a comforting safety net or a restrictive cage?
So, knowing all of this, the conclusion definitely isn't simply dinks shouldn't marry. Not at all. The actual core takeaway here is determining what function you want your intimate relationship to serve in your life. To figure that out, the source material offers this incredibly practical 4-step relationship audit. Question 1. Do you genuinely need legal binding for things like buying a house together or making medical decisions? Question 2. Do you personally need public commitment and social recognition? Question 3, like we just discussed, how do you view those exit costs? And finally, question 4, how do you personally weigh your desire for freedom against your need for security? This is such an empowering checklist because it completely cuts through all the societal noise and expectations.
Let's look a little closer at step 2 of that audit, the whole idea of public commitment. Honestly, this is a purely social and emotional preference. For some folks, there is this profound emotional weight in having societal recognition. For them, there is deep, deep meaning in being able to stand up and say, hey, this is my official family to the rest of the world. It signals permanence to their entire community. Conversely, other people completely ignore those formalities. They feel that their private, intimate bond requires absolutely zero external validation or traditional labels to be meaningful. And listen, neither of these is wrong, but knowing exactly which side of the fence you fall on is absolutely critical to deciding if marriage is the right vehicle for you.
And that perfectly transitions us into the final and perhaps the absolute most important audit question: balancing your core priorities. This is a direct, head-to-head trade-off between maximum freedom and structural security. Think about it. If your ultimate priority in life is maximum freedom, maintaining total 100% control over your assets, your life choices, and your ability to pivot without any legal friction, then yeah, the traditional marriage contract is probably going to chafe. But if your main priority is structural security, having a locked-in partner, those default legal protections, and a socially reinforced bond, then opting right into the marriage framework makes total logical sense, regardless of your stance on having kids. It really just comes down to an honest assessment of your personal risk tolerance in life and in love.
All right, let's pull all of this together into the big picture. Based on these changing dynamics, all the data essentially distills down into a really clear matrix, the 3 modern logics of love. First, if your goal is to raise children, or second, to build a structurally locked-in life together, the traditional action of marriage still makes complete sense. It does the job perfectly. But here's the third logic. If you're simply just in love and you don't really have the need for all that shared heavy infrastructure, well, the perfectly logical action is that you might confidently choose not to marry. And here it is. This is the absolute most important takeaway from this entire analysis. All 3 of these logics are perfectly valid. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. Traditional societal pressure really wants to force everyone into logic number 1. But modern relationship dynamics, especially for dinks, completely prove that building a long-term life just for its own sake, or choosing to remain completely unentangled legally while still being deeply in love, are entirely legitimate, scientifically observable choices. There is absolutely no moral failing in choosing the path of maximum freedom, just like there is no lack of independence in choosing structural security. You are allowed to choose. So, we've unbundled the tradition. We've weighed the hidden perks against the need for independence. We've looked hard at those exit costs. Now the analysis turns entirely to you. Looking back at those 3 modern logics of love, marrying for children, marrying for long-term structural life building, or staying unmarried for the sake of love and pure freedom, which of these resonates most with your current life stage? Relationships today are no longer just some one-size-fits-all default. They are a conscious, deliberate choice. Take these insights, use that 4-step audit, and confidently define your very own relationship rules. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.